Okay, so we are live, and we are approximately 5 minutes behind. And okay, and why is that important? Well, because we actually have a format tonight, and we're trying to find the format, and we want to follow the format because the format is good. And right now, I'm trying to get the format up where I can read it, which is why I'm doing all this stalling kind of stuff. We are live, and we are approximately okay. That's not going to work. It's kind. Why? Okay. Well, okay, where is that playing from? And we're trying to find the format.
That is probably inside of a video somewhere.
Yep. No, I see this. Isn't that?
Yeah,
So what you're hearing in
turn
the
off the
background right now, when you myself, I do this quite often. Okay, don't get to it. Yeah, I hear. Okay. Fine. Okay. So here.
This is tough, Chuck, because you're cutting in and out a lot.
Yeah. I'm trying to fix it. It's not as easy to fix as you think. Hello?
You're there?
So, can you hear me at all?
Yes,
I'm here.
I can hear you better.
Turn my video back on. What's going on? Hope things are getting good. What's that? Yeah, you're.
Yeah, this is kind of tough. I'm not quite sure what's going on. If it's on, it's on your. My frames per second is pegged at 30. We've got a really good connection on this side. You're definitely cutting in and out, and your video has definitely been freezing a lot. Alrighty.
Still nothing, huh?
How about now, Chuck? Your video disappeared, but now you're coming back in stronger with your audio.
All right, so you can hear me.
Can you guys hear me?
I can hear you.
I can hear you.
You can? Okay. Well,
okay. All right, so that's fine. I'll just go on audio for now, and that's completely fine. Anybody who wants to tune in, just listen. This is supposed to be something. What are we doing here anyways? We haven't decided that this is an audio cast. This is our bi-weekly Thursday night social audio cast, and we are currently 8 minutes after official launch, but officially we launched a minute or two ago and then had technical difficulties. So while I ramble on with that, I'm just kind of wasting time. But here's what I'm thinking that we do. We're going to basically, I had an introduction, which was going to be about 7 minutes long. And then we can kind of just skip the introduction a little bit, but I'll lead into kind of what's going on tonight just to be a little bit different. So tonight I'm calling this episode, Why Wyoming? No particular reason except for we're going to talk about Wyoming. It says that we're going to begin at 7 and we're going to run for 1 hour. And then we're going to have 15 to 30 minutes of social time where the audience and the panel can jump in and share. And what we're envisioning right now is like the people who are on Discord, we're saying those are the audience members. And we want more and more people to kind of join the audience, the live studio audience, if you will, so that they can come in and, begin asking us questions. Because what we're finding is this, as we're really learning about this new economy that is in front of us, there's a lot that goes into it. Very, highly technical stuff on the technology side, some of the legal stuff that's getting involved. That's getting like way out there, obviously well beyond our expertise. But our goal is not to necessarily educate the entire world on how to use blockchain. Our goal is really to figure out how to help one another navigate the marketplace during all of this. So again, tonight, when we talk about, we're going to kind of preview what that would look, what that'll look like. We've got Will Phillips with us, and we're going to talk, really just a general conversation, just get an idea. This is what it might look like when the audience comes in. Though I think that we're going to fill up. We'll probably have more of I've got like 10, 15 minutes for the will talk here. And, we'll probably shorten that up as other audience members grow. But that's kind of where we're going tonight. And then we have Usarian's going to come in and we're going to talk about a new segment called Be Well. And we'll get into that in a little bit. So normally we're going to start each week off with Tim and I doing this kind of intro dialogue and Facebook piece. And this is where I was going to introduce the Why Wyoming. So maybe we can kind of begin with that. Tim, did you do anything on that Facebook analyst thing, or is that something that you kind of feel like, we can let that go for now?
Well, as far as the Facebook post, you're talking about the business analytics, right?
Yeah. How far did you look into that?
Yeah, I forwarded you a copy of what I found on there, and essentially what it boils down to is Facebook. I saw an announcement that Facebook said that they're going to be letting go. They're going to be shelving their business analytics tools, and there wasn't a lot that I found as far as reasoning or anything like that. I think they have enough tools that are available through other sources is kind of why they're doing it. And the best I can tell is it's going away in June, so this year. And so, we probably definitely want to be aware of stuff like that, but also be aware of what are the tools that are replacing it and why. And maybe for the next time we can start looking into some of that and kind of get a feel for what does that mean.
So yeah, and I'm on. You think about that, and when it comes time. Social media, you want to market. Obviously, you just go out to Google AdSense. You use the analytical tools. That's all you're really doing is you're just hyper targeting your audience, and it takes some learning and it takes some getting used to, but it's highly effective marketing. So it's interesting when we hear that they're going to have a sort of drop their analytics. It's doubtful they're going to actually drop their analytics. As Tim says, they're probably moving to another tool. But what I hear from the Nefarians is that it's an important thing is to have, we'll call it network transparency. When you restrict what kind of information people are allowed to keep on their network and not release to you, it's a form of censorship, unlike most people would understand. So it's one of those things. And again, I'm not saying that that's what's going on in the world. I just heard something over at the market today, and it's the Nefarian. So take it for what it's worth from there. So one of the other things that you're going to hear us start talking about quite a bit is going to be why Wyoming, and we're going to kick off a little kind of fun campaign with that. But why Wyoming? Wyoming is on the forefront of the financial revolution around the globe. They are the resistance. Best way I could say it, right? I mean, it is the Wild West. And what's happened is the state of Wyoming has written a set of about 13 laws that really put the ownership of assets back to people. And this is important and not easy to understand. As I'm going deeper and learning about this, I have to go back to my, Series 7 days. The law. First,
I hear you.
you can hear me? So, Shine, could you hear me consistently?
Yep.
So that's interesting, Tim. You could hear me too. Will could hear me also. Interesting. Yeah. Yeah, no worries. So where I was going with this is it's not an easy thing to understand, but and again, the Nefarians have some thought on this, and maybe the Libertarian will have some thought on this. But back in 1994, basically the law stated that I'll say all actual financial assets had to be held in what's called custodial. And it's not exactly correct. I'm using some incorrect technology, but it's simply this way of thinking about it. When anybody has an account, let's say at a Charles Schwab or any of the big banks, and you have money in there, actually more so you're buying securities on the stock market, you're buying some stock, you got some 401k in there, you got some IRAs, you got some mutual funds in there. everybody likes to sit there and say that, when you buy a piece of stock there, when you actually get a piece of stock, you are an owner in the corporation. And that's sort of true. And it's sort of not exactly true, because the law that changed in 1994 requiring these assets, these security assets, to be held in a custodial account basically means that the account holder is like the Charles Schwab. They are the account holder, and we're trading within their internal account. So I may have some stocks and I may have some mutual funds, but it's really all Charles Schwab's legal account that we're trading in. And this doesn't seem like transparent, except when it comes to time for liquidation of assets, like we saw with Lehman. What we saw when Lehman had to go in front of the courts and they started liquidating, there is an order to liquidation that's covered under the this Uniform Commercial Code. I don't know it exactly, and I don't even know it. Let's say in any kind of good proximity of it, but it basically has to do with when a firm is going into bankruptcy and when it's being kind of put into a trustee's hands. There's an order who gets paid first. There are certain types of liens. There's bonds, if you will, that come before equities, and then banks can have positions between the bond and the equity, and so there's order of payout, and it's who gets paid first out of the assets. So as Lehman was going under, and who's going to pick the those with the most secure position got paid. However, since the people didn't actually own the stock in the account, they were actually then deemed general creditors, and they were lucky to get whatever was left over. So they weren't necessarily saying, here's your stock that you claimed you own, but it's here's whatever was left over to kind of pull it through. So it's interesting. I'm not saying that's exactly how it happened over there. I'm saying that's kind of the big picture here is what Wyoming has now done is set up constitutional laws that ensure for what's called possessory. And it is that the individuals have the right to absolute ownership of an asset. So it's really very, very, it's an important piece. And it's when I say, what I heard from the Nefarians is, when you talk about the globalist elite or whoever you want to talk about, and they're running ads that say things like, "Hey, I don't own a thing, and I've never been happier. I don't own a thing, and I've never been happier." I mean, this is the ad that they're running because they literally mean it. They don't want the citizen to own anything. So Wyoming is saying, "Come on, bring your spurs and your belt buckles and show up out here, and we'll see how a legal showdown of the marketplace plays out." So that's kind of my Wyoming thing tonight, which I think is kind of cool. What do we have audience thoughts on that?
Personally, I think that there's I like the fact that Wyoming is taking a notes out of the Delaware book and making this more of a legitimate solution for for businesses that are targeting this technology. And I like when states do that, and I think that that's a good thing to see. I do look forward to learning more, especially about the mining facilities and some of the things that they're doing out there with mining and things. And you said you looked into some of that as well, right?
Oh yeah. There's some really interesting stuff when it comes to the mining, and literally what, because they were they're a coal state, and one of the things they want to do is bring coal energy back online, and so they want to kind of open up their mining, and they're asking people to bring your mining, your blockchain mining, to their state in return. So it's very, very interesting. All right. There's something else. Yeah. So there's some interesting pieces that that fall into all of this, and we'll definitely be talking a lot more about Wyoming. And as you start seeing us share things about Wyoming, you'll kind of understand why. Um, so cool stuff. And from here, we actually want to kind of just jump in and we'll do our 1 minute break because we're kind of planning these things. We'll shorten the break a little bit here, but I actually have things to talk about breaks. And so, Tim, if you want to run our partner.
So which one do you want to go with first? I'm not sure.
Oh, you don't have those. You don't have them ready for a loop, right?
Right now. So
Okay.
I was messing around.
Then don't worry. Then what I would say is just randomly put up the partner posts while we're having this discussion. What's that?
Talk about Soapbox.
So Soapbox was one of the things that we had when we at the Hungerford building, and it was basically where we would allow people just off the public, whoever First Fridays, the people were coming in, and they could just jump on camera, and we would just start talking to them about whatever. It was kind of fun because it was one of those times where people didn't know anything about us. They didn't know what we believe. Sure, Saren, you can do cameras. Yeah, we were having some little issue with the camera earlier, so I shut mine off. So yeah, we had this thing with Soapbox where basically the audience member came in and they could share whatever they wanted to share, and then I would sit there or whoever was at the table, and we would just kind of hold these conversations. And very often we would take a position we didn't even agree with, just have a fun conversation. But more than that, they became really fun, and we'll probably have a few clips of those coming up in just a little bit of time here. But yeah, so what we're actually going to be working on is we have these. We're kind of having like partner break here, but we're going to talk about the break. But
so go ahead and switch over and talk about the media, tech, and brand design.
Yeah, that's exactly where I'm going toward right now, which really kind of begins with just having Tim give us. So Tim just finished up his Bitcoin SV Academy, and Tim and I then had a conversation the other day after that. And so what I thought was here is we'll kind of do a little bit of a deep dive and just kind of what we've learned, what we've shared, where we're going. And then I want to bring Will in, and that'll start to kind of represent the marketplace side of things. So yeah, Tim, do you kind of want to jump in here? This is where you were kind of talk about, whatever you want to talk about from the Bitcoin SV Academy.
Sure. All right. So what I've been doing, Chuck, just so you know, the audio does seem to cut out for me, but apparently it's not cutting out for everybody. And it's the audio levels that are going out to the stream, which is why I'm aware of it. Just so we're aware of it going forward as well. The having an opportunity to go through the Bitcoin SV Academy and learn the development for Bitcoin SV, understanding a little bit more about the technology, definitely brought me to a much better understanding of blockchain as a whole. Bitcoin, where Bitcoin fits in. Bitcoin's not actually a cryptocurrency, which is, I think a big misconception. Oh, hey, look, you got video. But from a perspective of technology, Chuck and I go back to the Air Force days, and we were both coding well beyond, well before the internet actually hit the public domain. And in the Air Force, they teach you an assembler language, which is basically the core interaction coding technology to work directly with a computer. So mind melt, done. The next level above that is kind of where blockchain starts to interact, is like a level above assembler, so which is why it's very efficient, very effective. And from there, it's actually a very simple concept. Anything that gets stored on the block, you can store pretty much anything and everything that's data related, except for the fact that it has size restrictions. And learning some of those and how to get around it and how people are utilizing different protocols and things like that to actually solve some of the technological solutions that they're having to create to solve some of the problems of the industry are actually pretty ingenious. And this opens up a lot of opportunities for us to kind of explore different ways of approaching technology. And it is kind of a different mindset. And you have to have a kind of a different thought process as far as it goes, when you're architecting a platform. but from a very simple standard, it's nothing more than if you were to look at for those of us old enough to remember cassette tapes, it's like a cassette tape that's spinning on a wheel, and as the cassette tape is being pulled into the container, it's being stored. These different blocks of information are being stored on that tape, and that just keeps rolling and rolling and rolling, and keeps adding to that tape. And if you were to think of a block with the blockchain, that tape is the chain, and the blocks would be, let's call them let's call the song on the tape, and the song is made up of many notes, and those notes could be hundreds or thousands of transactions that are part of that block, which is the song. In a roundabout way, that is kind of the same exact way to really understand what this is. Bringing it up levels, they've brought in a ton of tools. There's a lot of really awesome tools to actually allow you to interact and code at any level that you want to, whether it be you want to get right to the low level and interact directly with the computer, the miners, or if you want to go high level and just use a couple of tools that are out there like Handcache.io, Smart Ledgers, things like that, to actually build your solutions right on JavaScript and HTML. So, from a technological standpoint.
Say this. So Tim, we sort of lost you there.
Oh, yeah.
We lost you. Okay, you're back?
Okay, you back?
Yeah.
All right. At what point did I cut out? That's kind of a bummer.
So we kind of talked a little bit about the assembler thing, but where I wanted to kind of pick up and is calls. I see that the thing learning about that they typically don't, let's say the general public, if you will, is really what a protocol is. The protocol aspect is extraordinarily important because effectively what I would say we are at the beginning of is a time when individuals and individual organizations will create and manage their own protocols. And we don't tend to think in terms of protocols. So I think that that's kind of a big, important thing. And so I actually wrote down a legal definition of it that I looked up or something. But a protocol is simply an official procedure or system of rules governing affairs of the state or diplomatic occasion. So that's kind of interesting. A protocol is also the original draft of a diplomatic document, and especially in terms of be agreed to in conference and signed by the parties. And if you can begin to really wrap your head around those two explanations, that's blockchain. And in most simple, that's blockchain. People will basically be able, well, they again, depending on if the world governments allow the people to be free, or if we buy into some sort of statism. But ultimately, the people should be allowed to create their own rules in life, and that would truly end up giving us one of the most free economies ever, and in a way that any sort of harmful economy sort of just gets suffocated. It's really interesting, right? Because it'll be like rules of individual families and people and communities, and if they're reasonable and people want to deal with them, then we'll have these sort of economic contracts between different communities and different states, just like we have now. And but right now it's at the state level. It's going to be bringing it down to the individual level. So I found that piece to be very, very interesting. And then for the real kind of tech geek, where Tim was going with the assembler pieces, that you literally can write to the chipset level to protect your own protocols. So it's kind of cool. The security around it's just amazing.
Yes, the security is truly impressive, and the design, by design, the security is, it really is something that if I were to look at this and go back in my days and look at the way others were set up, this definitely takes a lot of the rules that we've known in technology and really kind of thought next level with it. So it really is it's a great architecture, and I'm looking forward to bringing about oh, what are we calling it? Generation keeper.
Yeah, perfect. And that's actually so. I've chatted with Will a bit about this and mentioned some others, but the first actual product or service we're going to come out with, we call it as a generation keeper. And again, just think about it like a photo box for your family. Very simply, a media library that families will be able to lock down, and if you, depending on how far they want to go, eventually write their own rules for access to their own family's media. Seems kind of reasonable to me. Okay, I've got some pictures that I think are near and dear that I would like to hold on to, and I don't necessarily want everything shared with the world forever. I'm not against a little bit of transparency here and there, but I don't know. I don't know. I wouldn't want to live in a glass house and walk around naked either. So yeah, so that's going to be kind of,
Question.
yep.
So, are there any weaknesses or in the blockchain that you guys can see? Because you're saying like how secure it is. I mean, what are any potential weaknesses?
There's many. There's, I mean,
Okay.
like any sort of technology, there's many. Like any sort of endeavor, there's many risks. Some of the risks that you hear about most frequently, which are really, I think, grossly overrated arguments, are things like, well, when quantum computing comes in, it's going to break the encryption. Well, okay, when quantum computer comes in, we're going to create quantum encryption, and then we're going to encrypt the blockchain. Okay, no, weak argument there. Some of the concerns are what, as we're already seeing with China, with India, they're trying to block access to cryptocurrencies, but in many ways they're not understanding the technology behind it is what's important, and that's where legislation has a lot to catch up on. Actually, and jumping back to Wyoming, which is very interesting. Wyoming actually set up, I think they're called a chancery court, but basically it's a court specifically to deal with blockchain situations, so that way the court itself is educated on the technology. So there, legislation could certainly be a problem. Systematically, there's some really cool systems like self-healing, self-blocking. So your overall risks seem to be considerably less than our current technologies. And I would say, and I'll turn it over to you, Tim, but I would say the biggest risk is that people have to be individually responsible for themselves.
Right, and actually to kind of build off of that, not only do they have to be individually responsible for themselves, they have to make sure they're keeping their keys safe, stuff like that. One of the other pieces that we need to really make it known is it's all about the company and the way that you approach it. We could store all of our data on the blockchain pretty much in clear text if we wanted to. There's nothing saying we have to encode it. There's certain aspects of the message that goes on the blockchain that has to be encoded, but outside of that, nothing else really. It's up to us how we choose to utilize that. It just so happens that we want to make sure that we're encrypting and doing stuff. And one of the things that I love is one of the companies, I actually was on a phone call today with a guy from Handcash.io, and Handcash, they have these things called custodial wallets, where basically somebody would kind of be able to transfer and spend money on your behalf with your approval. It's your sign. They don't really control it, but it's facilitating it more or less. And instead of setting up a custodial wallet, this company has set up a trust in a way that they actually can sign a message with special keys from two different companies, and both of those companies have to be able to unlock their key with the key that is provided to the initial user. So there are different levels of protecting yourself when it comes to a security model, and it's all in how you want to set it up. It can be as simple as you want, or it could be very, very complex and very, very difficult to break.
That's really interesting. So it sounds like maybe they could potentially move to like just allowing someone to have access, like you would give your kids a credit card and here you can go spend this.
Exactly. And you
So,
could, one other thing you could do with that, you could actually set it up where they need you to, to actually approve that transaction or provide a fingerprint or whatever the case may be in order to be able to send that transaction forward. So yeah, absolutely.
okay.
Yeah, and one of the interesting things, and you talk about these custodial accounts, and we're talking about how there's a problem with the custodial accounts under the Uniform Code, Commercial Code. But if if there, let's say that the blockchain company you're dealing with happens to be incorporated or an LLC in Wyoming, you can actually have custodial accounts where you set up the rules like Tim is talking about, and you still retain your ownership, unlike under the Uniform Commercial Code. So that's kind of interesting. Um, so then what's next for us right now is sort of hello world, which is okay, how are we getting to the blockchain thing? So Tim, hello world. What is hello world?
Oh, the old hello world. So the most basic computer program that they always have you write first was the hello world. Now this is going back, I don't know how many years. I don't know that it still it's much more advanced than it used to be because writing a hello world app nowadays is legitimately probably way easier than it was back in the day. So essentially that was the simplest, most basic form of going out, creating a little program that actually tells the computer to communicate with the world, hello world. And it was, whether it was a DOS console that you were typing go and it went out and said hello world, or it was a website that came up and put hello world in big bold text. That's kind of the first starting point of any entry level developer when it comes to training. And what Chuck and I have been talking about wanting to accomplish is to actually create our own little hello world and plant what they call planting a flag, which is, what do you want to what do you want your first presence on the blockchain to be? What do you want to plant your flag? And Chuck and I started talking about what we wanted that to be. And ultimately what came to is, well, hello world. So Chuck, you want to kind of talk about that a little bit more?
Oh, sure. Yeah. I mean, like, for going way back in basic days where you would have, I don't even remember this now, like number 10 for my line, and I'd say something like print hello world. And then I put number 20, I'd say go to 10, and I'd hit run, and it would just say hello world all across my screen. Like, I mean, so basically that is exactly it. The hello world is simply the way of basically saying, I understand the most basic of this technology so that I can create an input and that it will give me back something, right? So it's basically, you're just saying, here's this, give it back to me. So they talk about planting the flag on the blockchain, and we will be planting a flag. I don't know. We haven't exactly decided. Next 2 to 6 weeks, I guess. We'll be planting a flag, hello world, which will be our Ulysses stick figure doing something. So that's kind of where that's going. So we're hoping to, be on the blockchain sooner rather than later. All right. So moving on, let's go. Tim, you want to can you put up anything that is other than what's currently up? Because we'll go to one of our 1 minute breaks.
All right.
And this one is.
Do you want to go to Muon, or do you want to save Nefarians for later?
Oh, just go ahead and throw up.
Here we go. We're going to Muon. Have fun.
Muon. Muon tonight is our spokesperson for Another One Sold. So we're kicking off a campaign with Equity Safe down here in Beaufort, South Carolina, where it's the brokerage firm that I'm aligned with, and we're just selling so many things. And obviously, you just go out on Facebook, and every time there's a new sold, we're just doing Another One Sold. So we're just going to kind of have some fun poking around. Another One Sold, and called the Carolina Connection. But hey, we'll go there later. All right.
You there?
Yep.
Okay. So I put up Nareda Painting Studio 252.
Let's opening. Are you there, Tim? All right, I think we lost Tim again.
Looks like I might have actually just pinged the network or something. I don't know what's going on over here. Hold on.
Right. So let's go on. So now let's jump over to Will, and we'll kind of do the this would be, like I said earlier, our version of the audience talk, where I would like to probably have, 2 or 3 people lined up to, that are ready to ask questions. But really, we want to just get more of the audience kind of involved throughout, just like Cheyenne was doing there, asking questions. And so tonight, we're just going to approach this as audience talk. And this is a follow up. So Will had texted me last week, I think it was, or 2 weeks ago, after one of our calls, and he was asking a couple of questions. We went back and forth. And for me, it was very encouraging because anytime I can kind of talk about this, it helps to make it more real. And how do we get it, into the market from here? But what I want to do is I'm just going to start out with like Will, and I just want to ask you, Will, what made you first tune in to Thursday Night Social?
I've said it before. I kind of think of you as kind of like a local Elon Musk. A couple of things here, a couple of things there that are different, but and then you're not local for me anymore.
Couple.
But yeah, I trust you guys. I like how you're, usually on the forefront of technology. You're looking at things in the future. I like to think of myself as a technologist, trying to learn more about it. And it's nice